6 weeks time, even perhaps a little less than 6 weeks. So the moment, yes, indeed, is approaching. Of course, for some of you, it might be 7 weeks or a little longer, but the time is indeed approaching. So I do have some help today, as I always do, with G and Benj. So if there's anyone who has any technical problems, they will be able to give you a hand. And if you can hear me, please just type in the chat window that you can hear me, and that'll allow anybody who hasn't, checked their audio, they'll know that we are starting. And so if you can just say that you can hear, that'll be greatly appreciated. Great. Great. So, if we can have a team member provide the handout for today. So we're going to talk about some strategies for writing your writing your essay. And yes, I do say write your essay, even though, of course, with the new digital exam, you will be typing your essay. But I'm saying write in a more of a, metaphorical way that we use the expression. But you won't be handwriting anymore. It will be typed. So we're just going to make sure that everyone can open the file. So just check to be sure that you can open the file, and then we'll get started. And if you can open the file, just say, I can open the file, or okay, thumbs up, anything like that. And then we can start. Okay, G, and I'm sure you notice someone's having trouble with their audio. So if you can give them a hand, that would be great. Okay, great. So this book in front of you is the new 2021-2022 Master Series book. We'll just take a quick peek at a couple of sections that might be relevant to you a little later. But we're going to start with your ideas behind this exam. And today, I am using a pen that I got last year at the University of Western Australia when I was in Perth, and I've kept all my every memento that I had from each of the cities that I visited, from London, Dublin, Adelaide, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane, all of that finished because COVID said no more of that. Ay, ay, ay. So, okay, Aaron, someone's gonna give you a hand with that. But of course, most people have been able to open the file, so I can't say exactly what the issue is. So we're going to talk, and the handout that you're seeing is exactly the handout that you have. So, so if you're not able to open it, you can still follow along. And this will be recorded so that you can come back to it later. So I'm going to talk about section 2, structure, strategies, ideas. So first of all, of course, you're going to have 2 writing tasks. Of course, I'm going to have to say a few things that most of you already know, but perhaps there are some things that weren't so clear to you. For example, the exam used to be 5 minutes of reading time. During the reading time, you weren't allowed to write in your paper. You weren't allowed to even mark your paper in any way. Couldn't fold a corner, being at risk to have your exam canceled. So ACER still says in their 2021 booklet that you have 5 minutes reading time, but it's really not true. I mean, it's not reading time. The exam starts, and then you have 65 minutes to complete the exam. But soon as the exam begins, soon as the timer starts, you can start writing. So for example, if you have ideas or thoughts of, some expressions, some titles, some things that you really worked on prior to the exam, and you want to make sure that, you're going to be able to think about these things, what would be most relevant to use for your test. Of course, you can't just use anything, but it might be that you have a dozen or so beautiful expressions, analogies, something like that. And so as soon as the timer starts, you can write those down, and which is different from, the exam before the year 2000, before COVID. So now you can write as soon as the exam. So you have actually 65 minutes in which you can be writing, as opposed to 5 minutes reading time in the past and 60 minutes of writing time. Now it's 65 minutes that you can write. Of course, you're going to still need some time to read and some time to consider your responses, but it's still, the approach is slightly different. And it probably is a bit of an advantage to you to have the extra couple of minutes per essay on average. Now, you're going to have comments. And of course, we're going to get you to plan an essay. So you will be planning an essay today, or at least I hope you will. And then we'll try to get some feedback for some good ideas, or good approaches, or good titles, etc. So we will try to get that done here. So when you're being presented during the test, you're going to have 4 or 5 comments. Traditionally, it was 5 comments. So, for decades, no exaggeration, for decades, it was, for 20 years, for more than 20 years, it was 5 comments. And also, Acer would give you the names of the people who left the comments. So you would get, whatever, John F. Kennedy or something like that, Winston Churchill, something like that. So you saw the name, Shakespeare, you'd see the name of the person who left the comment. But then Acer sort of switched it up in the last few years. And in general, they have 4 comments. In general, they will either say anonymous, or they won't even give a name to the person who left the comment. So it just changes a little bit your approach as to how you handle the quotes. How do you refer to the quotes? Because in the past, it was easy to refer to the quote by mentioning the person's name. But now you sort of have to take a little quote from the quote, take a little sample of it, refer to the content of the quote, something like that. But try your best not to do something as inelegant as saying, as a title, comment number 3 or comment number 4 as your title for your essay. How boring is that? So there are other more elegant ways to either quote from the quote or, put it into your own words so that it's clear what you're referring to. But you should be referring to something. Why? Because it's in the instructions. So the instructions is not that you are going to be writing about a quote, which some students get confused and do this. They write the whole essay about a quote, ignoring the theme of the 4 quotes or 5. So the instructions are such that you are writing about a theme. You're writing about the common theme. So that means you have to read all the quotes. You have to get a sense of what's going on. And the theme is, it's never ambiguous. It's not something that, oh my goodness, I couldn't figure out the theme. No one says that. It's either you're paying attention or you're not paying attention, but no one says they couldn't figure out the theme. It's always that clear. So you just have to read all the quotes, and then it will be apparent to you what this is all going to be about. And then you're going to use 1 or more quotes in your essay in order to advance your ideas. So you are using quotes in your essay or comments, but the point is that you're writing about the theme of all of the quotes, and you're not trying to take one quote in isolation and then just go off on a tangent, which could obviously lead to a disaster. So that's the only way a good writer gets a bad score is when they missed the clear strategy, right, about the theme. Otherwise, if you're a good writer, you're bound to get a good score. Right? You're just bound to get a good score. Okay, so obviously you're going to articulate your perspective and give the topic, synthesize ideas, write clearly, standard English. And notice the issue about spelling and punctuation, that's last on the list of importance, because what's most important is your ideas and how you express your ideas. That's what's most important. But, you know, the punctuation, the spelling, put it this way, the only way that that's going to really affect your score in a negative sense is if your performance is such that it is difficult to understand your ideas because of the way that you're expressing it. So, so that, you know, keep that in mind. The great purpose of this is the quality of your ideas. And we'll see in a little while, there is no section of GAMSAT that you can improve your score faster than in section 2. This is the one that you can improve your score the quickest. And so we'll talk about why and how. Now speaking of score, so depending on where you're applying, you know, your section 2 score is going to be worth either 25% of your overall GAMSAT score, or it's going to be worth 33%, a third of your overall GAMSAT score. And that is, of course, because there are some programs that will weight section 3, the science section, twice. In that case, then section 2 is worth 25%, section 1 is worth 25%. And then there are programs now, over the last few years, this has been evolving, where they weight each of the 3 sections equally, and therefore section 2 is 33%. Whether it's 25 or 33%, obviously this is significant. And the issue is that there are many students who do not prepare as though this is a significant part of the exam. In other words, they'll spend hours and hours, days and weeks, very focused on physics or general chemistry or something like that, but not a balanced approach in which they are completing dozens and dozens of essays, practice, getting ideas from, you know, reputable sources, etc. So it's just that you should keep in mind that somehow you are going to devote a significant amount of time, you know, to respect the amount that this is going to have in terms of its impact on your chances of getting into medical school or dental school, so that you're going to do this in terms of your practice. Now, who gets a great score? Who gets a great section 2 score? There are some students who just have sort of a natural charisma. There are the kinds of students, they walk into a party, and a socially distanced party with masks. What's this world coming to? Anyway, they walk into a party, and all of a sudden, this semicircle starts spontaneously forming around them because their stories are so fascinating and interesting and compelling. And so there are some people who are just like that. They do not need to prepare for this exam. They just have to, you know, practice a little typing and then just, you know, just unleash. Because if their stories are that compelling, then they're going to be able to write really, really wonderful essays. Then there are people who have skills. And yes, I spelt it with a Z. And skills, that means mad skills. And these are people, I mean, they have a degree in English or philosophy or psychology, history, you know, or law or commerce, and they have experience writing essays, and they've been engaged, so they're able to conceptualize, you know, different ideas from different sources, and are able to synthesize those ideas very well. And they also have stories that they've written before, and so it doesn't mean that all apply to a new essay, of course not, but it does mean that sort of like they have deep pockets that they can go into when they get into a crunch, and they can just bring some of that content out. And those will be the first students who will say, oh, I did an essay, but it wasn't my best. It was a terrible essay. And then they end up scoring over 70 because they just have those skills that they've developed over years and years. And then there's most students. And most students just need practice. And 20 to 40 essays between today and your exam, March 17 or 30, whatever, 25, whatever day you're going to end up getting as your exam date, 20 to 40 essays, that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal for most people. You know, as I said, there's exceptional people that they don't need that at all. But for most people, that's pretty normal. So if you're not in that range yet, you know what you should be aiming for in order to get the adequate practice. Things that you have to keep in mind, you know, as you are going through these dozens of essays, yourself timed, you know, starting to develop your titles. You're going to find you're going to have a few titles that are applicable to many situations, and that are original and compelling, you know. And at the beginning, you're going to start by saying, oh, I don't have any ideas for titles. I don't have any ideas for essays. Okay, how many did you do? 2, 3, 10? Okay, when you're up to 40, you have ideas for essays. When you're up to 40, you have ideas for titles. You just need to get the practice. You have to throw yourself into it. And then, yeah, and that's ideas and that's passion. All of that's going to come as you go along. Okay, so your response has to be relevant to the theme, number one, okay? Of course, must express a well thought out opinion, sound reasoning, supported by evidence. That's another thing. You know, it's one thing to, when you're with your friends, you're having lunch, you're having supper, going for coffee, you express your opinion about something that's happening in the world. Yeah, that's fine. But that's not an essay that's going to get you into medical school. You know, you have to be able to pull out numbers, data, statistics. Now, I just want to keep this thing balanced. If you have great insight, if you have great stories, you can get away without data. But if you do not have those great stories, if you do not have those skills with a Z, then you have to find ways in order to elevate the quality of your essay. And one of the ways that you can do that is supported by evidence. And of course, it has to be well structured. So we're going to just talk about some rules for structuring your essay. So of course, these are from Gold Standard GAMSAT. There's no such thing as formal rules for essay writing for this exam. There's no such thing, but we're going to talk about some basic rules that will optimize your score. But again, this is based on you not having a strong essay writing background. Because if you have a strong essay writing background, then right now you should be studying physics or chemistry or biology or something else, you know. But other than that, if you don't have a strong background, then it's important to learn the rules of essay writing. And then if you want, you can break the rules. You can do that, but at least understand what the basic rules are to optimize your score, and then you can make your choices as you practice. And then with your experience, you can make your choices. And also, by the way, you have to play according to your strengths. If you're the kind of person who's better at argumentative essays, reflective essays, whatever type of essay you're best at, of course, you're going to play to those strengths because that's what's best for you. Okay, so first, you know, the rules in terms of planning your essay. So of course, this is called the Gold Standard GAMSAT 5-minute 5-step plan. The first step is you're going to be, you know, time starts. You're going to read the quotations and you're going to get a sense of them, you know. And the wonderful thing about the new post-COVID GAMSAT is that when you're reading the comments and you're getting a sense of something, and you know there's a little fire starting inside of you because of something you've seen on TED.com or in The Meaning of Things by A.C. Grayling, or something you saw somewhere, or even in the newspaper that morning, is ignited by a comment that you read wow, you can write that on your A4 paper immediately because you're given scratch paper, A4 paper, in order to be able to start writing immediately. So soon as you see anything any idea comes to your mind as you're reading the quote, just jot it down. You know, don't sit on it and think about it later. You just want to have everything there. You have 2 A4 sheets of paper that you get for the entire section 1 and section 2 together. And then you have your break, and then you come back for section 3 and you get 2 different A4 sheets of paper. So the A4 sheets of paper is for section 1 and section 2 combined. And it's plenty. It's just be efficient with your space. That's all. Okay. So according to ACER, the first task deals with social cultural issues, while the second deals with more personal and social issues. So we're going to talk about how you classically plan for these 2 different types of essays. So an essay that deals with social cultural issues, often politics comes up, you know, perhaps half of the time politics comes up. And for these types of essays, it's often helpful to use an argumentative approach. So what I usually say in the courses and stuff like that is that writing test A is argumentative, A for argumentative, and writing test B is versatile. That's personal misspelt, but it's easy to remember. So that's the way it usually is. So in the last 20 years, it's been like that. There was just once a couple of years ago, ACER switched it where the personal essay was writing test A, so whatever. But the point is that in the exam, one is expected to be more social cultural and the other one is expected to be more social, personal issue. So the typical approach to an argumentative essay is to develop, to have a minimum of 3 paragraphs, minimum. So if you're a good writer, you'll have much more than that. And if you're just hanging in there, then this is the minimum structure that you require to have completed an organized essay. So the first is the thesis, then the antithesis or antithesis, and then the synthesis. So the thesis is basically you've evaluated the theme, you know what the theme of the essays are, and then you zero in on, for example, one quote, and then you explain the meaning of that in your own words. And if you have enough time, you provide an example of that. And that's going to be your thesis paragraph. And then you have your conversion on the other hand. However, and this is your second part, the antithesis or antithesis, in which you describe in detail. So this is not some, 1 sentence, 2 sentences in which you're describing the opposite. You're going in detail with 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences, really describing the opposite of what you described in the first paragraph. And by the way, just to be clear about this, you don't have to say, "It is my opinion," in the first paragraph. Because if you do that in the first paragraph, "It is my opinion," then in the second paragraph, you already say, "But by the way, there is this exception," it's silly. So, I mean, it's a very safe way to write an argumentative essay in the third person. It's a safe thing to do. You're describing, you're explaining, but you're not committing to your personal feeling. I'm not saying that you can't. You definitely can. But I'm just saying it's a safe thing to do. So how many of the 5 quotes do you have to use in the essay? You don't have to use, well, I'll be careful with this. The instruction says to use 1 or more essays. There are some students who are outstanding writers. They're just outstanding writers. And sometimes they just don't even use a quote and they get an outstanding score because their writing is just too good. But you're supposed to use 1 or more essays. You do not get higher marks because you used 5. And in fact, what usually happens is when a science student, for example, who doesn't have experience writing, tries to get 3, 4, or 5 quotes into an essay, it usually ends up being some disaster, like someone throwing spaghetti at the wall thinking it's a picture. It just, there's just not enough understanding of the depth of each quote. So it's not going to help you to try to get all the quotes when you don't have the depth of understanding necessary. The only people who really go that far are people who have the politics, the psychology, the philosophy, and everything else. Otherwise, you might actually be working on a lower score just because you're trying to cover too much. And in terms of verbatim, of course, you do not get extra marks by rewriting an entire quote, you know, because that's not your idea. But you should quote from the quote, a key part of it, or put it into your own words, and just find a way that is clear what you're using, what quote and how you're using it. And of course, by the way, this is a technique that you develop as you practice, the more practice you do. Okay, and then after the antithesis, you do the synthesis. So this is where you're able to say when one position works and when the other position works. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, you're just being gray, you're sitting on the fence, something like that. It's not true at all. This is an affirmative. This is when you're saying, for example, classic situation is sort of human rights and a person's right for speech, freedom of speech. These types of things come up regularly on the exam. And so a typical resolution to an issue of freedom of speech is that I respect your right to the freedom of speech, but your freedoms end where mine begin. So for example, if you are exhorting a crowd to come over to my home and burn it down, then I think that you have crossed the line in terms of freedom of speech. So there are ways that you can be affirmative in the pause, and to say when one thing's applied and when another thing applied without looking like you're just sitting on the fence. So that's the synthesis. Now, again, I do have to comment because one requires flexibility. There are some students who hate that approach, and they've developed a strong technique to argue one point of view. For example, if you're a lawyer and you spent your career arguing one point of view, but you have a lot of obviously knowledge and legal precedent that you can bring up, okay, come on, that's an exceptional case. But for an average student trying to get an above average score, then this is the safe approach. And then writing test B, your personal essay. So first you start with an introduction. Next, so again, you take one of the quotes, you explain what it means in your own words. Then the body of your essay has a minimum of 2 paragraphs. Minimum of 2 paragraphs. One is the social implication. So what is the social implication of love, courage, whatever, of this social or personal essay is about? And then the 3rd paragraph in your essay, which is the second part of the body, is I. It is the first time all day that you actually use the word I. You turn the entire essay towards yourself. I looked in the mirror and I was not proud. I struggled. I did not believe that I could do it, whatever. Or even more beautiful, mea culpa, which is Latin for I was guilty. And then you're able to show how you overcame, something. So everyone likes that self-redemption story, and this is the possibility. Now, of course, this is the personal essay, but you know what? If you have some stories that you've never told anyone in your life, not even the closest person to you, then perhaps an essay to get into medical school is not the time to say it for the first time. So it is a personal essay, but yeah, everything has its limits, of course. I just will just take a quick look at to respond to comments. So what is your persuasive essays? Persuasive essays, see, the thing is about a question like that is if you have practiced with persuasive essays, that can be very powerful. But I cannot recommend a persuasive essay to someone who says, I have not completed an essay since grade 10. and now it's 6 weeks in front of the exam. Should they be practicing persuasive essays? They should be taking standard approaches towards essays. So whether or not to do a persuasive essay is going to depend on your personal skills. So instead of having an antithesis, you give points for reasons why the perspective is the better one. Yes, absolutely. You can do that. You can do that. Or should we always, you do not, in fact, the concept of antithesis is when a person requires structure because they do not have good essay writing skills. Learning the rules is to replace not having the skills yet. So now you just get some stories, you improve the quality of your English with better words, better expressions, better analogies, and then you have a structure that's ready for you. That's the safest thing. That's the safest approach. Do you have to write in first person for B? You don't have to do anything that I'm saying. I want to present rules that represent safe choices, and then I'll show you how you can break the rules. You do not need to write in any of these particular ways, but you need to think about all these things. So in order to optimize your own skills for this test. Okay, so breaking the rules. This is where you're exploring your creativity. You can write letters. Everything I just said, broken. You write, "Dear Mom," and you explore your feelings towards your mother. You write, "Dear Editor," and then you're bringing up evidence and arguments against what the newspaper had been saying. So here it is persuasion. You are not even trying for a second to show both sides. You are coming out strong in one direction. "Dear Mr. President, dear Miss Prime Minister," you can write a breakup letter. Who would have thought a breakup letter would get you into medical school? But yet it could be a subject that talks about social media or love or loss, something that is able to just wraps right into that. And then this breakup letter explores those things. Now notice, I still think it's important to know rules, because when you know the rules, you can have them in the back of your mind, even as you're breaking them, because at least you're going to try to bring up something. Perhaps you'll try to bring up social implication. Perhaps you'll try to, to make something a little extra or personal. So you can do all of these different things. Okay, question. If the theme is about corruption and we write a letter based on that, do we have a small section at the end explaining, example, the context, or should that be included in the letter? Well, it's first of all, you can do either, obviously, for sure, you can do either. But of course, it's more beautiful if the letter is self-explanatory. You wrap it all up, the feelings are there, rather than taking the viewer out of the movie. You take the person out of the film. So yes, but that's a creative choice. Okay, and then there are people who've written short stories. Could you imagine? In the 1 hour, they've written short stories. Some have written poetry, diary entries, their diary. They wrote the dates in the diary. They write it. A debate or conversation. Consider this. Consider that you look at the quotes. Sometimes there are quotes in exact opposition. Sometimes they're similar. But you look at the quotes, and then in your essay, you have a hypothetical conversation between two individuals. And at some point during your essay, the two individuals say word for word what was in the quotes. Beautiful, beautiful. The quotes end up being a seamless part of a discussion. So all of these creative choices are possible. You can have social media postings. You can put acronyms as your title. You can put an acronym that you would use in social media as your title and in your essay. But please, if it's a little bit obscure, you should probably explain it in the essay, because some of the people reading your essay are an average age more than you. Let's say you can tweet Trump, but he can't tweet you back. Oh boy, Justice, sometimes she comes late, but when she arrives, she's so beautiful. Okay, in terms of evidence for the essay, do we need to memorize info from a source? AC Grayling, readers of things, say something from the book and mention, oh yeah, but I mean, there's nothing more beautiful. Okay, there's nothing more beautiful, of course, than being specific. You know, you're stating evidence and you say, in a study that was done at the University of Newcastle and the study done at Imperial College London, whatever, that you are able to bring that up on the spot during the essay. And I know some of you are saying, I can't bring up a study during the essay, but that's what I was saying before. There's no section like this that you're able to do this so easily, because all you have to do is go back over AC Grayling, all your favorite things from AC Grayling, and take very, very brief notes, just the highlight, what university, what location, what place, what year, Socrates, whatever it was. Take those highlights and look at those notes 3 times a week. Is that too much to ask? To look at those notes from the start 3 times a week because you're serious about section 2. And you're going to look at those notes the night of the exam and the morning of the exam. And when you sit down for section 1, you can actually write some of those notes. What? This was impossible, you know, in 1999 or any time before, that you have these ideas in your mind and you just do a brain dump as soon as you sit down for the exam. But now, because it's the same scratch paper for section 1 as it is for section 2, I think they're going to have to change this in the years to come or next season. I don't know when, but it seems to me they have to change this. But for now, you can just write down, you know, UCLA psychology anorexia study, and then you write the main finding, because you have in your mind not 100 studies, that's ridiculous, but you have in your mind perhaps a dozen. That's not too hard. 3 times a week, you're looking at a dozen studies, you know, and you increase the chance that you're going to be able to bring up 1 or 2 of those studies during the exam. So other places to be looking, you know, you should be developing a list of really beautiful words and expressions that you can be bringing up. If you have the Master Series book or the Gold Standard, you know that we have sections of the book for this. We'll take a quick peek before we do the essay. I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes to work on that. And then keep up to date with the debate that's going on, local news, national news, you know, you're checking the Australian, the Guardian, the Irish Times, global news, powerful resources like the New York Times. I know you're thinking that, oh, that's American, but they're national, they're global news. They spend more money than any other news organization on global investigative reporting. And The Economist, powerful. You know, if I'm not even saying every day, once a week, 1 hour, pick up The Economist, either online or go to your local library or uni library, or online. Okay, because some of you can't go there. So yeah, The Economist, powerful. And I'm not even saying read this or read that. You don't have to. Just keep turning the pages and see if anything interests you. If anything interests you, stop, take notes. The Meaning of Things by A.C. Grayling are already referenced. It's a very inexpensive book, wonderful, short essays on topical areas. You can find sample essays, gamsatprep.com. And then there are really serious essay correction services. There's Acer. Now, their essay correction service, it's automated, so you don't really get comments, but you get a reasonable, accurate score for most students. Not all students, but somewhere between 80 and 90% of the students who use this service by Acer found that the scores are reasonably accurate. Gold Standard, which is us, we don't have 80 to 90% accuracy for the scores. We don't have that. Acer's got a more powerful model. But what we do have is personal guiding statements in order to help people's essays improve over time. And I'll get this last thing. What key resources do you recommend for debate? And those are, I recommend editorial sections of local, national, and global newspapers. The editorial sections, they are able to frame debates very, very well. And by the way, it's not as overwhelming as, it's not as over. If you do that several times a week, you take notes and you read from your notes several times a week, this is not physics. This is not rocket science. It really isn't. And by the way, another fun thing that you can do to add to it is go to Crash Course Philosophy and Crash Course History a couple of times a week, TED.com, a couple of times a week, not for an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You're going to be able to do things you never imagined. You're going to be able to write about Socrates, about Aristotle, about the Russian history, just because you did that a few times a week for the next 6 weeks, and taking notes and looking at those notes several times a week so that you are consolidating your gains. Completely changes your essay, completely. Yes, the editorial section, same as the opinion section, yes. Okay, and so yes, I'm gonna just quickly show you this before we go on. So this is the brand new, just printed in January 2021 Master Series book, and this one now comes with essay correction. So it also includes essay correction. And I'm going to show you just a couple of quick things before we go on. One is the description of the exam with this surprised some people, because everyone knew it's 1/3 section 1, 1/3 section 2, but no one likes seeing 6% physics. But that's really what it works out to if you are going to University of Sydney or Melbourne or University of Queensland, that it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, then it really ends up just being 6%. But if you're going to a school where it's 50-50 for science, non-science, then it becomes double these percentages. And in this new book, by the way, one of the things that I really, okay, yeah. Who wants to read a quote from a book that's teaching you how to respond to quotes? But nonetheless, I had to add this one in. Write, rewrite, when not writing or rewriting, read. I know of no shortcuts. What a wonderful thing to say about section 2. So, and that is the truth, Ruth. One of the other things about this book, which is new, is that it has all of the topics that Acer has had since 2007, all the way up to 2020, all of the topics that have been on the exam. So you can start working on that kind of thing. And one of the new things that's added are 50 sample essays at the end. And one of the things that I was really surprised at is that students can find this very helpful. In fact, of the level of the meaning of things from A.C. Grayling, because it's topical and up to date. And we're going to be doing one of those essays in just a moment. So that's the new book. Okay, and it's also available as an ebook, so you can get direct and instant access online. Okay, now you have an essay, and I hope you have some scratch paper available for you. So I'm going to ask you, please, to plan your essay. Now, you don't really have to read this part. The comments are about a theme. Take notes about the theme in an organized way. And then after 5 minutes, we're going to try to get ideas from as many people as we can, or useful, helpful ideas. The next tutorial, free tutorial, by the way, is going to be in next month, and it's going to be about GAMSAT physics. We also have weekly tutorials for 3 hours. Tonight is going to be GAMSAT biology, genetics, cardiovascular system, oxygen dissociation curves. And that's going to be 3 hours after this. So we sort of have to finish on time. So you guys are going to have 5 minutes, because this is normal, by the way. It's 5 minutes to plan an essay. So you're going to have 5 minutes to plan your essay, and then we'll see who's got some great titles or some great, starter sentences or starter ideas for this essay. Please have your scratch paper ready. It's usually A4 too. And we are going to start now, please. Okay, so that's time. So does anybody have a beautiful, oh, by the way, just to say that you do have a model essay that was submitted to the Gold Standard GAMSAT Essay Correction Service, and it's just lovely quality essay. So that's in your handout. You can read it later and get some idea, perspective of what real quality looks like. And please, if you're not at this level yet, don't worry. This is a matter of exposing yourself to enough information, practicing and improving your use of language. It's practice, practice, practice. There's no way around it. Okay, does anybody have any interesting quote or compelling title that they would like to share with us? So do you have an interesting quote or compelling title that you would like to share with us? Okay, one at a time, one at a time. And apes together strong. Apes together strong. Well, I would have to say that is intriguing as a title. I would certainly want to capitalize. I would certainly capitalize strong, and I would probably capitalize all three words, just the first letter of each word. But that that is a very curious title. If you want to go far, go alone. If you want to get there, go together. Patricia, that's a lovely quote. That's a lovely, lovely quote. Of course, that would not work for a title of an essay, but to weave that quote into your essay, that is lovely and very pertinent. No one is self-sufficient. Everyone relies on others. Okay, Karen, I think that's a lovely, it's a lovely statement, but it makes you wonder, where's your proof? Where's your evidence? And I'm sure you were going to do that. I'm sure that's the next thing you were going to do, is to start showing some story from history or from philosophy or something that reveals this. Many minds, one motive, magnificent world. Row. Yes, that's quite nice. Yes, many minds, one motive. Many minds, one motive. Yes, yes, yes. I think that works. I might have just used 4 words: many minds, one motive, end it there, and work in the magnificent world in the essay itself or in the conclusion. But yeah, either way. Should we ever use one of the quotes as a topic sentence for one of our points? Yeah, I think that's lovely. Yeah, sure. I think that's I think that when Acer originally made the essays 20 plus years ago, I think that's what they were expecting, that you would use a quote, for the topic on one side and then another side if you were going to write argumentative type of essay. So yes, I think that's perfectly fine. Does anybody else have a sentence that they would use in the introduction or something they would use in the conclusion? And by the way, it's normal for you to plan the entire essay in 5 minutes, and then you spend 20 minutes writing and 5 minutes proofreading. So that's a normal schedule. 5 minutes planning, 20 minutes writing, 5 minutes proofreading. And by the way, as of now, there's no copy pasting. Okay, so you're going to be typing, and you have to get used to the idea that it may sound like a tornado, okay, or a hurricane. Tap, 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 tap. With those old-fashioned keyboards. It depends on where you're going to sit the exam. Every test center is different, but a lot of students sat the exam at locations where they have sort of old-fashioned keyboards that are clickety clackety clickety clack and whatever. But you can ask for earplugs. You can ask for earplugs if you find it overly annoying. This is a new thing, of course, for the digital exam. Okay, so despite our genetical background, so genetic background, not genetical, the vast majority of humans enjoy the solace of another. Solace of another. To go into how our testicle size is too large to be for a monogamous species, yet we're mostly monogamous as a whole. That is, that's interesting. It's interesting. I'm sure it's going to keep the person's attention during that essay. I'm not 100% sure where that's going, but you know, it will have their attention. And by the way, you're not getting scored as to whether or not your essay is politically correct or politically incorrect. Okay, you're not scored based on that. It's based on the ideas you're presenting and the evidence associated with that where required. In this scenario, could you mention like the deadly sins, greed and pride? Yes, you know, Ellen, just for you to say the deadly sins, greed and pride, just that is evidence of being exposed to literature at some level, you know? So of course, that's very nice. That's very nice. Would this work as a title? Many countries, one goal, many approaches. Yeah, that could work as a title. It's not a great title, but you know, it could work as a title. Of course, you need to capitalize countries, one goal, you know, many approaches, M and A for many approaches. So you could get that. Don't worry about typos. You're going to get marked down only if it's going to affect the reading. In the 30 minutes, what I suggested is 5 minutes to plan the essay, 20 minutes to write the essay, 5 minutes to proofread. The reason you're proofreading is, and yes, I am saying to fix the typos. The reason you're proofreading is not because you're going to get marked down for the typos. It's because some typos are so bad that it's difficult to understand the sentence. And if that sentence was critical to the paragraph, can you imagine? It ends up being that this terrible typo was so bad, it's affecting the understanding of one paragraph in your essay. That's the reason that you must, you should spend just a few minutes at the end to check. No copy paste, by the way. There's no copy paste as of now. Acer might change that in the future, but as of now, there's no copy paste. That bit after the is what I would branch into. Okay, where can I find recorded for these tutorials? Someone will respond to you about tutorial recordings. Let me see. Let me just quickly check this one. How can I go about coming up with strong title idea, Joanna? Oh, it's gonna be so easy for you. It's the issue is, okay, there's many places that you can go to get great expressions and ideas and so on. Okay, so I'm not trying to say that it's only the master series that has this or only Gold Standard, because of course you can get this online. You can get beautiful expressions and so on online. But I'm just going to show you some things that's in the book, some beautiful expressions. Things like persona non grata, and this is an unwelcome person. So persona non grata, any single essay about immigration, if your title is persona non grata, oh my goodness, you've just elevated your essay to a completely different level. A person who has illogical arguments, and you have something like non sequitur. I said already about mea culpa. It's a very famous expression. The fault is mine, or I am guilty is what it means. This as a title for a personal essay about love, courage, feelings, whatever, any personal essay in which you reflect on something from the past and you can see the failure that you had once, you know, something like that. You can find these expressions anywhere, but these are powerful. They're not just powerful titles, they're powerful expressions for essays. And it's not that you have to memorize them all. You get a dozen of them in your head and you improve your essay markedly. You know, I've made videos about section 2 in which I say that this one works for probably 30% of essays, carpe diem, because it means to seize the day. And this concept, oh, it's fantastic. And the students in my course, I will tell them about this one, which is not in yellow, but Vox Populi, the voice of the people. Vox Populi is perfect title, perfect in a essay, because it is democracy. You don't have to say democracy is Vox Populi. You don't have to say that. You can literally write Vox Populi, period. Or you can put that as a title. It completely changes the power of the essay. And then you end the essay by saying, after all, what is democracy if not the voice of the people? And, these things might sound, oh, like, how are you coming up with this? But the thing is that if you're looking at that several times a week, it becomes second nature for you. To have ideas ready for section 2, should we format the notes without quote? You definitely have to format the notes, but that's why you do the 5 minutes of planning. Quick question about reading more through a variety of sources. Does reading more also help in section 1 preparation? Oh, reading more help. In fact, a good section 1 preparation will prepare you for section 2. A good section 2 prepare you for section 1. Because do you know how many words you're going to learn when you're preparing for section 1? If you do a lot of section 1 practice tests, you learn words. You actually do. And so, and if you take notes, if you go through your section 1 notes on a regular basis, you will start leaking those words into your essays, and then your essays become more powerful. Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end there. Next time is going to be GAMSAT Physics. And by the way, we have a forum, GAMSATprep.com forum. You can always post there. Of course, we have Facebook and so on. And we have giveaways. We've been giving away once a week some access to an ebook. Only one per person, please. And please don't start making 5, 10, 20 different email addresses just to get access, please. Let's try to be honest. Come on, we're, being doctors and all of that, ethics and all of that. So please, if you want to, try, then yes, try, very good, but please be honest about the effort. We're trying our best to be straight with you as well. So, okay, good luck with your studies. There's plenty of time to get the score that you want. And see you next time. Bye for now.